All right, guys, so we're gonna get started on your last set of lessons for your last 3 day set of distance learning work. I told Jada I was gonna do this, so Jada, put down the popcorn, make sure you're paying attention, all right? Um, so, we've been talking about the First Continental Congress. Remember, First Continental Congress had one purpose. Its major purpose was to decide what we are going to do about the Intolerable Act. How are we going to react to that tax or to those punishments that were given to the colonies? But after we get done with the meeting, we decide that we've got to make sure that we can defend ourselves if it's necessary. So to do that, we created these groups called Minutemen. Now, the Minutemen, they're not good soldiers. They train once a month if they're dedicated, but they could be ready at a moment's notice. All they did was they grabbed their gun, they run out to the field. So they're gonna die, but they can be ready really, really, really quick. Then on April 18th, 1755, the British prepared to leave Boston to go to Concord. This is the first battle of the American Revolution. The Battle of Lexington and Concord is the first battle of the American Revolution. And they are going to Lexington, they're going to Concord, to get weapons that we have stored there. And this is where the story of Paul Revere's ride came about. Now, it's very misunderstood, all because of the poem that was written. The poem, they used words that rhymed. So, listen, my children, you shall hear the midnight ride of Dr. Samuel Prescott. Doesn't have the same ring to it. But Paul Revere did come up with the plan. His plan was to give warning by placing lanterns in the bell tower of the Old North Church. One lantern if they're coming by land, two if they're coming by sea. And on the night of the 18th, Paul Revere saw two lanterns hanging, so they are coming by sea. As insurance about the message not getting there, Revere and William Dawes both take two different routes and they meet in Lexington. At Lexington, they're joined by a third rider, Dr. Samuel Prescott. Now, when they leave Lexington, they don't tell that the British are coming because they honestly considered themselves British at the time. So they would have said the regulars are coming or the redcoats are coming, mentioning the soldiers themselves, not the British, because they considered themselves British. But before they could travel the distance from Lexington to Concord, they encountered British soldiers. Three men try and get through. Paul Revere is captured immediately. William Dawes gets past them and almost escapes but falls off his horse and is captured. Dr. Samuel Prescott is the only one to actually make it through and give the warning. But like I said, his name just doesn't have that ring to it. The Minutemen very quickly gather at the Lexington Green to the big field in the middle of the town to prepare for the battle. But they have to wait a really long time before the British get there. So they wait at the local tavern, the local bar. And by the time the British get there, a lot of the Minutemen have left. Both sides gave the order to their men to not fire. Both the British and the Americans, the colonials, told their men, don't fire at the other. Because they know once a shot has been fired, they can't take it back and war will have been started. But then even without the command, somebody gave the order to fire. That event is known as the shot heard around the world, because at that point, we go from being a set of colonies that are in dispute with the mother country to we're at war. The British open fire. They destroy the American forces. The American forces turn and run, and the British start marching on to Concord to get the guns. When they arrive at Concord, they find the entire town deserted. They also can't hardly find any weapons. They've already been evacuated. The British soldiers frustrated, and according to legend, we don't know if this is true or not, they set fire to the town. We do know that the town was set on fire, or that the town caught fire. We're not 100% sure that it was set on fire, but it's what evidence would lead us to believe. The Minutemen bust into the town and attacked the British so viciously because the Minutemen were hiding in the woods. The British didn't know they were there. They attacked them so viciously that the British turn and run. And at the end of the day, the British retreat all the way back to Boston. The colonists, they have about 100 dead. The British have over 250. So at the end of the first day, the colonists have kind of won this battle, and Britain looks really bad. May 10th, 1755, the Second Continental Congress began meeting. We are no longer, and they're meeting early because of these battles. We're no longer trying to necessarily decide what we're doing with the Intolerable Acts. We're trying to decide what's going to happen next. Are we going to war? Are we going to try and make peace with Britain? The first thing we do is we make George Washington the leader of the Continental Army. He's really the only guy that we have with a lot of good, solid military experience other than Benedict Arnold. And just in case the colonies need to defend themselves, he's put in charge. The second thing that we try and do is make peace, because we realize Britain is going to kick the crap out of us. And so we do that with a document called the Olive Branch Petition, because the olive branch is the universal symbol of peace. That's why we name it that. But when the guy that we send to Britain, Richard Penn, gets there, King George III won't even look at the document. War is going to happen. George III declares the colonies in rebellion. He hires Hessian mercenaries, Hessians are Germans, to attack the colonies. He's like, I'm not even going to send British soldiers, I'm going to hire people to just take care of it for me. And the colonies are divided. 1/3 of our colonies are loyal to Britain. 1/3 of our colonies want independence. And then the other third is kind of, they're fence sitters. Whichever side is winning, that's the side they want to win. And that's who they'll tell that they want to win. You know, if the British show up, yeah, we want Britain to win. The Americans show up, yeah, we want America to win. And although battles have happened already, technically, America had a hope of it not becoming a war. At this point, colonies are still trying to achieve reconciliation. We're trying to achieve forgiveness. But in 1776, that's really just a small hope. That's why you got the picture of the tank here with the olive branch sitting in front of it. Come on, give us peace. And if that doesn't work, we're ready for war. All right. In January of 1776, this guy, Thomas Paine, writes a document. The document was called Common Sense, and here's the reason why. Up to this point, we've had things written saying why we needed independence, but all of these documents were written by lawyers. Most people could not read or write, and those that can could barely read or write. So if it's written by a lawyer, they can't understand it. Common Sense was an attempt to explain these issues in common everyday language of why we needed to break away from Britain. The pamphlet sold over 500,000 copies. That's a lot, especially for back then, considering that nobody could read or write. The Continental Congress decided we have had enough, the Second Continental Congress. They decide to permanently dissolve the relationship between themselves and Great Britain. And they write the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence is proposed by Richard Henry Lee of Virginia. Proposed means that he's the guy that came up with the idea.